Welcome to the SUPfm Podcast, celebrating 10 years of stories from the water. And our mission has always been to help you grow your knowledge, strengthen your connection to the sport, and to inspire you both on and off your board. As we wrap up the season, this episode takes a reflective look at the year in stand-up paddleboarding, from events and adventures to the achievements that shaped 2025. And I'm joined once again by Sarah, SUP Junkie Thornley, and together we'll share our highlights, hear from some of the voices who made this year memorable, and look ahead to what's next in 2026. Next year is a crucial year for the sport itself, with the IOC submission of new events for the Olympics in Brisbane 2032, one which we hope SUP will be a strong contender, and also the countdown to the ICF World Cup in 2026 in Torquay, Devon. It's an exciting time for SUP, and this episode captures both how far we've come and where we're heading. So here we go with the final episode of the year with my collaborator-in-chief, Sarah, SUP Junkie Thornley. Hi Sarah, welcome back to the SUPfm Podcast.
Thank you very much for having me again. It feels like it's been a little while. It's great to be back on the mic with you.
Yes, absolutely. And we have actually spent quite a bit of time together this year. And as always, it's a real pleasure collaborating with you and hopefully collectively contributing something to the visibility and development of SUP in the UK and across the world. And in this, our last episode of the year, we're looking back at quite a year in 2025 and a real prospect of a very special one in 2026. But before we get into all of that, what were your personal highlights of 2025?
Well, the racing has been insane. And I think my personal highlight is actually dipping my toe back into a little bit of racing. And there were two races in particular. And I entered my first international race for a very long time. And that was Lake Rocks in Austria. Now, what a wonderful event. What a beautiful, beautiful location on this stunning private lake. And I just sort of threw myself into it. I decided to do sprints and tech, both of which I'm not proficient in at all. But I did a bit of practice. I had a bit of coaching and I had a bit of fun. And it was just brilliant because the sprint format was something very unique. You don't all go off together in your heats. You go off one at a time over a time mat. So there's a procession of paddlers, but it was brilliant fun. And then I did the tech race. And because there were so few in our 60 plus class, I had the joy of paddling with 50 plus women, which, they are incredibly strong paddlers. And I didn't qualify for the next round, but I did the race. I enjoyed it. And then the joy of not qualifying was that I then jumped on the mic with Matty from Total SUP to commentate on the tech races through to the finals and the juniors and the age categories. It was an absolute joy. So hopefully going back next year. Yeah. And then the other one, which I must mention, was the Big Dipper race in the north of the country, run by Anna Little. And the conditions were absolutely insane, mental, all of those words. But I borrowed a board from Paul at Starboard and just had a go. I got absolutely tumbled. But do you know what? It was a real joy to just get in that proper messy water and just have a go. And it was just the best fun. So yeah, a couple of sort of racing highlights for me personally, yeah.
Brilliant. So as an ex-British champion, SUP Connect Woman of the Year, and of course the brains behind SUP Junkie, let's kick off the review of the year in one of your specialist areas, racing. And obviously international racing is inevitably centred around the World Championships. And we've had two recently, as we record this, almost within a week of each other. So let's just start with Abu Dhabi and the ICF competition there. There were more than 460 paddlers from 54 nations, all competing for prize money there. And there was a really spectacular performance by one particular individual who absolutely dominated the event.
Yes, another of my favourites. I've been following her for years. She's this little pocket rocket, Marie Carmen Rivera, and what a superstar. She's been working so hard. She's sponsored by Infinity, and Dave Bainey is clearly a very good sponsor, very supportive of women racers as well. So he's got a great team. And she just came alive for this competition. It was her time, and she was on her Infinity Ever Ready board, and she just literally smashed it out of the park. She won the sprints, she then won the tech, and she won the distance as well. I mean, she was on fire, and that's the first time that anyone has ever won the 3 gold medals at one event at the ICF. She was so happy. I mean, you look at her, and she's absolutely tiny, and she's just got this power. She trains really hard. She's just brilliant, and she just dominated the whole event. It was spectacular to see that happen, definitely.
And as you say, it's the first time that an open competitor at the ICFs had won all 3 events, so really flying the flag for Puerto Rico and her sponsors, as you mentioned, Infinity, Quickblade and Black Project.
Yep.
And all of those sponsors have been hugely supportive, I know, and she was also competing at the ISA Worlds in El Salvador, which we'll talk about in a minute, and she did very, very well there as well. But just to say that the men's events were a little more shared, but Shuri Araki from Japan, who again has been putting in some fantastic performances this year, he retained the men's long distance title, didn't he?
He did, and again, he is someone who is, again, if you follow him, he's been paddling since he was about, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, and his whole family support and live this dream. Their dream is for him to be, well, he is already a multiple world champion. He's been competing professionally since he was, I don't know, 15 or something. They travel the world together. He's got his little sister and little brother, and it's really wonderful. And they're very respectful of their time and their sport and their team and their family. His father, I think his father has designed a board. He was he is so fast. It's uncanny to watch him. His stroke rate is so high, and he can just turn it on a sixpence at the beginning of the race, at the end of the race, and it's like he's doing a 100-meter sprint all over again. I mean, it's just quite incredible, his paddling prowess, and he is definitely someone you really need to be watching and just enjoying his huge success. But that whole family ethos, respect, and when he finishes, he turns around back to the water and bows. It's very Japanese, very traditional family, and they live on the ocean. He practices on the ocean every day. This is his life. So yeah, he won the distance race, and it's so cool to watch him, because you think, how can he paddle so fast at the end of however long he's been paddling, be it 9 or 10 miles, he's absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely, and coming as he does from Okinawa, that's a real ocean environment, and clearly picked up all the skills, and I think probably inspiring other paddlers from Japan. You can see the increase in competitors and top class competitors from that country really plying their trade on the circuit. And then, as we mentioned, all the other titles, so the sprint and the technical at the ICF was split, or there were 2 different winners there, both from Spain, obviously highlighting that country's domination of racing. Sergio Cantarell won the sprints,
yep,
and Aaron Sanchez won the technical.
Yeah, and that was something to see as well, because Shuri Araki was in the lead for the tech, and it just looked like he was going to win. And Aaron Sanchez just almost did a Shuri the last 100 meters. He just put the power down, and he beat him. So Shuri can be beaten for sure. And the great thing about him is he will take that away, he'll take that on board and learn from that. But yeah, fair play to Aaron Sanchez for beating Shuri on the day in that tech race. Peter Weidart from Germany is a multiple world champion in the 50 plus. And he won the sprints, he won the tech, and I think he came second in the distance. He's got so many gold medals. A 50 plus paddler, it's great that they have these age categories for the 50 plus and sometimes the 60 plus, but you should be racing against your age category, and he's again another one to watch.
And Cantarell, as we mentioned, from Spain, won the sprint, and that was an incredibly tight finish at the end. Korbarov, I think, was only 7/100ths of a second behind him, so practically a photo finish on that one.
Absolutely, and again, he's got a great story. He came through. His father was turned around at Abu Dhabi, wasn't allowed to come into the country. Luckily, he had his mum with him as well. So that must have been incredibly tough emotionally for him. He also didn't have his board because I think it got damaged or didn't arrive. So he had to borrow a board from a young lady there, and she lent him her board with no sort of commitment or anything. And he won. So that's a really lovely story, isn't it? And very emotional at the end, because obviously his father should have been there to witness that and would have been back at home watching it on the TV like the rest of us. And the other person I'd love to mention is Csillag Kokszit from Hungary, because she won the junior women. Again, she was on very, very good form, and she won the tech and the distance in the junior women. It's her last year as a junior, so she's doing incredibly well. She has done some open races as well, but she's up there in the open as well.
And you mentioned the age categories and some fantastic performances there. There's an NSP athlete, Penny, now I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, Penny Sautsu, who is one of the most accomplished paddlers in the women's 50 plus category, and she first appeared in the ICFs in 2019, but she's collected during her time competing 12 medals, including 5 consecutive world titles. So a huge shout out to NSP athlete Penny from Greece, which I'm going to call her now. And again, like Peter Weidart, shows the value of these age category competitions, because there's some fantastic competitors in all levels.
And she actually has a little story, because she's had a knee replacement at Christmas and other fairly serious things happening physically for her. And you can imagine the pain she's been in, but she's come back and she's done well. Obviously, by her results, she's done amazingly well. So there is life after a knee replacement.
There you go, absolutely. And Abu Dhabi was a new type of location. It's not necessarily known as a high participating SUP country, but it did seem to be very successful and, a great location.
I think it did turn out to be that, as there always is. There are always naysayers to any event, where it's going to be held. Is there ever a perfect place or a perfect time? But in the end, it did turn out that paddlers did want to be there, 460 paddlers, as you say. And the location looked absolutely beautiful. And I think the people who went really enjoyed everything about it, the location, the friendliness. There were places to visit which were stunning. And I think it showcased a really, really good event. Yeah.
And just before we finish with the ICF and the World Championships, there was an announcement about a launch of a new event, which is the World Paddle Games, which is a flagship event which basically showcases the full breadth of paddle sport and brings together the 10 ICF disciplines on a single global stage. I think it's just been announced at this point as an event, and locations are putting in their bid for it. Obviously, stand-up paddleboarding is participating alongside canoe polo and dragon boat racing and so on, but that sounds like a fantastic new competition and one that's very exciting.
It does, and that you've absolutely sort of surprised me with that, because I'm not sure I'm ahead of the game on that one. So you need to send me the links. I need to look into it, but it sounds really innovative to encompass all those paddle sports, of which there are many and of which they are so exciting. And if SUP can be included in that, again, it raises its profile, doesn't it? This is what we need to do all the time, is to raise the profile of SUP racing to the world, because we know that it can be incredibly exciting. But to showcase other disciplines is, again, a brilliant idea, because there is so much more to SUP than just yoga, racing, polo. It encompasses all aspects of the water. It can be really exciting.
And obviously there are advantages, combining resources, sponsorship, all of that sort of stuff, participants, media coverage. It sounds like a fantastic initiative, and like you, really looking forward to hearing more about how that one develops. We will keep an eye on that. So Sarah, tell us about the GB team that went to the ICF event.
So we had a great team who went. With the ICF, you can go either in a team or anybody can go. You can go. I could go and participate. So it's a really open and inclusive event for SUP racers, and we had some, really good results. It's tough out there, and I think every paddler who went, who's been before, so the likes of Sarah, Annie Ridsell-Smith, they all said how the level has upped, and I've noticed that, in all classes. So it was tough, and another factor out there was the heat. It was oppressively hot, so doing the distance, I just can't imagine. So really, really well done to all our GB team who went. We know how difficult it is. They don't get funding. Paddle UK, I believe, helped. Paddle UK went out to watch, which is great for the future. So thank you so much to Paddle UK for doing everything that they do to support SUP racing and paddleboarding in general. We had Sarah Maxey. She's in the 50 plus tech, and she came sixth in the final, which is an incredible result, because that 50 plus class, men and women, is so difficult. And Annie Ridsell-Smith, who's become an old hand at this, it was her fourth ICF Championships, and I think she said it was her favourite. And she had her best results, so she came 13th in the distance, 10th in the sprints. And then we had the likes of Rachel and Crispin who went, who they absolutely threw themselves into training. I think Crispin lost two clothes sizes, out training every day. And Rachel Booton, who just threw herself into this with just such lovely abandon, joy, and had the best time. And that is what you want. And they raised funds, they raised the profile of themselves, not only themselves, but of SUP racing in general. They had a lot of love from Kingsbridge, where they're both from. So, and there were others that just, they all did incredibly well, and they all, they showcase, UK and GB SUP racing at its best. So yeah, well done to all of our GB paddlers who went.
And we really enjoyed Crispin from Waterborne SUP's daily updates from the race as well. Your roving reporter for SUP Junkie there, he did a really good job. And so, well done to all of the GB competitors at the ICFs in Abu Dhabi. Obviously, there was the World Championships, but there is a cumulative championship based on all of the scoring events. You mentioned Lake Rocks, which is one of those events, and Marie Carmen, clearly the overall prize for the women across all of those events, helped by her Triple Crown at the World Championships in Abu Dhabi. But a friend of ours, and might I say a friend of the show, Donato Freens, accumulated the best cumulative score to win the men's event, and I was absolutely delighted to see that result. I mean, he is an absolute unit. He's still, I think, only 20, so a lot of developments to go. But I'm sure, like me, you were delighted to see that result.
Yeah, I have a bit of a soft spot for Donato, because I met him at the Spring SUP race, which is another ICF world ranking event in Comacchio in Italy. Only last year. It feels like about 3 years ago. And I met him and we had a little chat, and he just remembered our first coverage back in 2018 at the APP World Tour. And he just said he listened as a very young man. And I was like, oh my God, people don't reference that time anymore. I do, because it was quite pivotal for SUP Junkie. It's where we launched SUP Junkie. But he just said he listened to it, and I just thought, how lovely. But he's he's lovely to talk to. He is a unit, but he's had a stellar year. He's had an absolutely brilliant year in Europe. He, again, is sponsored by Infinity, so he rides the Ever Ready board. And he is just very respectful, so hardworking. And yeah, couldn't be more delighted for him, getting to the top of those points for sure.
I'm very keen. I mean, when we had a conversation on the beach near here, talking about bringing younger people in to the sport, which is something which is very much needed at the moment. So yeah, we were absolutely delighted to see that. So congratulations to Donato. Moving on to the ISA World Championships in Surf City in El Salvador. So due to the magic of recording, we can reveal that we are recording this in mid-November. So there's still the final day of competition to complete, which is the sprints. However, the competition that's happened so far has been absolutely incredible, and there are some familiar names amongst the winners. Now, you caught the technical, didn't you? I didn't manage to catch it, but it was something quite spectacular.
Do you know what? It was a joy to watch, and it was almost like going back in time. You know, that the waves, some of which were massive. I mean, they held the SUP surfing competition a couple of days before, which they could do, and the waves were just beautiful. This sort of peeling right, and that's where they hold the tech and the distance and the sprint. So, and they have a hammer buoy, which anybody who remembers watching the old racing back in the day in California and the PPG, and it was just incredible to watch the skill of these paddlers, getting out of the shore break and then coming around that hammer buoy, and you just all we are doing as viewers is saying, please let there be some waves. Not everybody likes that, which we'll talk about in a minute. But the race of the tech was the ladies' final. There were 4 ladies in contention, and the lead changed backwards and forwards. And this is all to do with skill of it's a lot of luck involved as well, because you need that set to come through when you're coming back to that hammer buoy. You need to get positioned on that wave as well. A lot of them were heading right, and then they would cut across and just take that wave right to the hammer buoy. And a lot of paddlers fell in those waves because they were massive. You know, I implore you to watch it back. Please watch it back. And it was the most exciting thing. And the ladies' final came down to, again, 2 of my absolute favourites. I've sort of got 3 lady favourites, and these are 2 of them. Juliette de Heim and Marie-Carmen Rivera again. And they were coming in on having been backwards and forwards with the 2 other ladies. They then came in to the beach together. And there was a wave, and they'd taken their leashes off in readiness for getting onto the beach, which is this beautiful black sand. And as they came in, a massive wave came. And as skilled as they are, they both fell off, and they're both tiny. And they were both then swimming in the water. Their boards had landed on the beach. They were swimming in the water. And I think we all know, trying to swim with a paddle in your hand, and the water was going, backwards and forwards is quite a rip there. And Juliet got out of the water first and ran for the line, which was up the beach. And Marie-Carmen Rivera sprinted so fast, and it was a photo finish. And the lady who got it was Juliette de Heim, and it's her first gold medal. And I'm so pleased for her, because she's another lady. It's definitely worth following her on Instagram. And she's great on the MyCat. She's great with social content, and she is training and what she's been doing over the last sort of year or 2 to up her level. And there's some lovely interview by Matty of Total Sup on Total Sup's social media pages, and she's so emotional. It means so much to her to win, and they are both Infinity riders. So again, Dave Bainey, more success for him on that day. I think he won on that day 3 gold medals and 1 silver. And she was very, very emotional, and I'm just so pleased for her. And Marie-Carmen and her are really good friends. They're team riders together, and they supported each other wholeheartedly. I think if either had won, they'd have both been equally pleased for each other. But it is worth watching. The men's was, again, insane, with all the massive waves that were coming through, the people who fell. There was one moment where Shrimpy had come round that final buoy towards the hammer buoy, and he went out right because he wanted to get the break of the wave. And then he checked behind him and saw that there was a wave ramping up and 6 paddles on it. So he literally scooted across in front of them all to get onto the hammer buoy side, caught that wave with all those men, but got round the buoy first. The level of technicality that goes into this sort of racing. So he won his first gold medal of the ISA, for this competition. Not his first, it was his 5th, which then equaled the record of gold medals won at an ISA event.
Incredible. And as you said up front, flashbacks to Battle of the Paddle in California. There was one particular race I remember Candice Appleby and Fiona Wilds battling it out. But, talk about a gladiatorial competition and the lottery of luck together with skill on those waves to come in together and also going out together, which is also a bit of a challenge in itself, where you're all trying to get over the same wave, and some people make it and some people don't. But yeah, and particularly good that Juliette won, because she's been competing for years for Argentina, and it was great to see her get that win. And of course, Marie-Carmen coming in second place in what's been an absolutely stunning year for her.
Yep.
You mentioned about the men's technical. So the top three there, Shrimpy, so Shuri Araki. There was Christian Andersen, the polar bear, making an appearance in the technical there and coming in second place, and Guilherme Reis from Brazil in third place. And that was equally dramatic, wasn't it?
Absolutely. You had the thrills and the spills and the backwards and the forwards. The people who start off, on that beach and get away in the first 100 metres and maybe lying first, second, and third, for sure that was not going to stay in that way to the end. The only one was Shrimpy, and that's because skill and luck. I think more skill than luck. But yeah, so pleased for Christian Andersen. We've been following him for years. He's a lovely, lovely man. He's just a beautiful man to talk to, and has this great history with Casper Steinfath and paddling for Denmark. Lovely person. So really pleased to see him do well. But yeah, that lead changed, and again that wave. When you watch the footage and you see it from the front, you can see how big that wave is. But when they show you a drone shot of that wave, you then realise quite how big it is, and the skill of manhandling a 14-foot carbon raceboard that could be between 20 and 22 inches wide. It's quite insane. It was utterly brilliant. But again, Shrimpy was there, got his first gold medal of the El Salvador World Championships.
And then moving on to the distance event. So the women's was won by Juna Dilo of Spain. Second place again in that event was Marie-Carmen, who was chasing the front pack for quite some time before she managed to get into that second place, and Alba Alonso from Spain in third place. And again, it wasn't quite as dramatic, but pretty dramatic in terms of waves there. And again, look at the race. When the women set out, probably about half of them got taken out by a set coming in there. But yeah, incredible performance. And Marie-Carmen Riviera, although second place, just a phenomenal performance this year and just huge consistency. She could have actually come closer to the front, but she got knocked off by a wave about halfway through, and at the end she had a bit of a complication hitting the shore, but that was quite some race to watch.
Yeah, she did incredibly well, and it was a very, very exciting start because, as you say, I think half the field were taken out with a big wave. Literally, 3 steps in and half them were off their boards. 2 of those were Chilag and Marie-Carmen. Marie-Carmen was almost right at the back, and within a kilometre, she had got herself up to 4th. I mean, to make that decision to power out all in at that stage of the race, where potentially you could burn out immediately, but her, she's so fast. So she was right up there, and again the lead changed. It went backwards and forwards. It was so exciting, and I think Alba Alonso Frey was, possibly from her facial expression, was really quite disappointed because she had led for quite a long, a lot of the way with her Spanish teammate Duna Gordillo. It was, again, another amazing race. And Marie-Carmen, again, caught a great wave and took off and got ahead again. And Chilag, came 4th, and that's her, in the open class. She took that step up again. That's where she'll be next year. She'll just be in the open classes. But for her to come 4th, and on the ocean, she's not an ocean paddler. She's not confident in it. She again fell off at the beginning of the race. So was at the back almost with Marie Carmen Rivera, and those two girls just put the hammer down and caught up to be third and fourth. And then just the finish again was incredible. And that watching it with the waves and the shore dump and the finish, you never really know what is going to happen, right to the very last minute, the very last step. So it's so exciting to watch. I know you and I were both watching it, weren't we?
We were absolutely glued to it, and a shout out for the coverage as well, because that was absolutely superb. Matty was providing the on the boat coverage, Bo Nixon, and there was Dave Bueni there as well, amongst others, and the coverage was just fantastic and just brought the whole thing alive, really. So I think obviously having it at that location and with 6 weeks notice wasn't necessarily ideal, but it was stunning and the conditions were absolutely perfect, and it was just quite something to watch.
Yeah, and they did announce it very late. This is not the first time that's happened. It makes it very difficult. And that is why there were no GB paddlers there. To try and get a board to El Salvador from many countries is incredibly difficult. And the funding, will your board actually get there for you to race? There are no boards to borrow. Some paddlers just went there in the hope that they might be able to borrow a board. But of course, if other people are competing, it's not that simple. It's not that simple. They don't have multiple classes or age categories like the ICF do. So that is a negative. But the positives are the coverage is brilliant. So watch it, learn from it, enjoy it, laugh at it, cry at it. It's fantastic.
And then the men's distance race as well was a spectacular. And again, the waves got involved there. And there seemed to be a level of sort of inconsistency because there were relatively small bumps coming in and then suddenly a massive set hit. And Shuri Araki again took quite a lead using that incredible paddle stroke and that cadence that he has in order to establish actually a huge gap. At one point you couldn't even see the second and third place, but rather dramatically the Spanish paddlers who were in second and third, and they weren't that close, but they were a little way behind him, got caught by a particularly big set. They both wiped out, and the result was that by the time they managed to get back and paddling again, they were towards the back end of the pack, or certainly not in the leaders. And Ethan Bry from France and Nicolo Riccio from Italy managed to come through and take second and third place.
Yeah, again, it was so exciting to watch, and that lead, you cannot underestimate how it's pretty dodgy. You're not, if you're in first, second and third at the beginning, as I said earlier, it's not likely that you will be in those places with that wave. So yes, on the distance race, the wave was less consistent, but what it did do was absolutely ramp up at the most unexpected times, and it was huge when it did. So all those guys are incredibly skilled, manhandling, as I say, that 14-foot race board, but some of them fell, and that made a huge difference to where they were placed. A couple of them who fell, I think the riders you were talking about, the Spanish riders, found it really difficult to get back on their boards because they were then in that, that shore break, and it's sort of heartbreaking to watch and must be heartbreaking for them as well. But that is the nature of the game, and that is we're the winners, the viewers, because we are watching it and enjoying the whole thing. There is prone racing at the ISA, and one of the prone races, so there were a couple of leash incidents in the tech racing. One of the girls had a leash on, and she's not used to paddling with a leash because I think in the surf lifesaving they don't have a leash. And her leash she fell off and she did a tumble. The prone guys are very clever because they can actually do a 360 roll and stay on their board. Amazing skills. But her leash got caught up, so she took it off. And of course, because she's not used to wearing a leash, she then realised how slow it made her. She managed to get bronze, but it really slowed her up. And then in the men's distance race, one of the prone paddlers, I think is an Italian, who was doing really well. He may have been in second place. He chose not to use a leash, which they were allowed to do. And he got tumbled in the surf on that big surf. And he got tumbled once, held onto his board, got tumbled twice, lost his board. It ended up on the beach, and he had to swim quite a long way to get his board back. He then carried on the race and won copper, which is in itself fantastic for him. But yeah, leash decisions for the prone guys is clearly not, it's just not what they're used to. So it can cause difficulties or not. So yeah, very interesting.
Absolutely. And yeah, I saw that one, the prone guy swimming and still going back. But really, that is the hallmark of prone paddlers. And I think I messaged you during that race. My respect for prone paddlers is completely off the scale. I mean, they're putting themselves into an uncomfortable position with a face full of surf or water for a prolonged period. I think I said they're maniacs, but maniacs in the most positive way. I mean, just incredible. And that resilience to go and recapture your board where it washed up on the beach and then rejoin the race. It was quite stunning. So huge respect to those prone paddlers taking part in that competition. So that was the ISA. We will leave the results of the sprint competition in the show notes here. Obviously, it hasn't happened yet as we record this, but it could be that Shuri Raki does a Marie Carmen Riviera at the ISA, and there's every prospect he might win all three.
Well, ironically, he does struggle with the sprints. And he's not actually qualified for finals for a couple of years. So you'd think that he would be utterly brilliant at it, but it's not his strong point. So it'll be great to watch. He's now on 6 gold medals for the ISA, which is the most that anyone has ever had. So he's a world champion and a world record holder as well. So willing him to get that sprint, because that will just be the icing on the cake for him. Let's not take away the fact that he's got 2 gold medals from this competition alone, but let's see how he does. I mean, he couldn't be in a better time. He said, he was interviewed by Matty, and he said that, Matty asked him what changes were being made. And he just said it's his physicality. He's now 19. He's bigger, he's stronger, he's a little bit wider on the shoulders. So hopefully that will stand him in good stead. He's got all the skills. He's got all the ocean skills. He's got the speed. He's got the power. But maybe that just being that little bit broader, little bit stronger will tip him over the edge to get that gold medal. Let's hope so. I really hope he wins it.
Well, absolutely. And having the sprints at the end of the competition rather than the front end, it means that there is also quite a bit of fatigue amongst all those other competitors as well. And as an endurance athlete and someone who should be able to perform in sprints, bearing in mind his acceleration and his power, let's cross our fingers for a triple crown for him at the ISA. And so moving on into the category of ultra endurance racing. So there are some absolute classic races in there, and probably the most venerable and the longest running SUP race here in this category is the 11 Cities, which I think has been running since 2009 consistently. And this year the non-stop race was run by Marco Teodosio, another challenging pronunciation for me, but he's from Portugal and also lives in the Netherlands where he coaches, and he won the 12th edition of the non-stop challenge in just over 29 hours, I think. So it's 220 kilometres, the 11 Cities. We've done episodes on it before, including with Nick van der Linde, who also won the non-stop edition. But it's a proper grind fest, isn't it? Particularly if the wind is blowing. Although the water is nominally flat, there are sort of lakes and connectors or whatever where it's a bit more exposed, and it's a real toughie. So that non-stop, particularly running through the night, is quite a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yes, if you look at it on paper, you think, oh, canals, flat, nice, a bit dull maybe, but there's nothing dull about this race at all. And that lake can be notorious. I mean, the race has been, that lake has stopped the race. One year they had to take that day out because it was so wild. And we all know that once that wind gets on the water, if it's an open, exposed place, I saw some photos from this year actually, and even on the canals, there were waves almost, with wind funnels down that canal, it can be absolutely gnarly. We've got some Brits who've been over there quite a lot and, you know, challenged themselves to not only the non-stop but the 5-day event as well. But it's you know, it's a race that I've never actually got to. I would love to go to just experience the atmosphere. It's supposed to be beautiful, run by lovely people, one of whom I did meet in London actually, but I've never got there because it always clashes with something, and I can't think what that something is, but it's always something quite important. So I will get there one year.
Well, it is a challenge, and much the same for me. It's an absolutely epic European challenge. I would say it's probably akin to the SUP equivalent of the Tour de France, really. It's non-stop, but it's also multi-day, and there's a multi-day event, and where people also compete. It's the lowest cumulative time, and the winner for the men's this year was Tim Oliver from Canada, and the winner of the women's open category, the solo, was Andrea Fora from Switzerland. So huge congratulations to them. And you mentioned that there's some Brits who compete, and I thought I'd take the opportunity of mentioning someone who got 10th place in the Grand Master category, Mr. David Partridge, who is an endurance athlete par excellence. And I know that you've had quite a bit of contact with him over the years. He's an annual competitor at SUP 12 as well, which is not an insubstantial challenge. Just tell us a little bit about David.
Oh, David is I don't very often use this word, but he's a legend. David, you're a legend. He has paddled for years. He does the endurance. He just pops up everywhere. You see this race and there's David doing it. And then not only does he race, the next day he's written an amazing article about it for SUP Mag or whoever. He is just brilliant. He's the loveliest man. I don't know how old he is, but he and I might be of similar years. I'll have to find out. So he's possibly a grand kahuna, and forgive me if I'm putting a few years on you, David. I don't mean to, but he does all the races. He absolutely loves it, and he is brilliant. So fair play to David for getting stuck in and showing that, you know, whatever your age, get out there and do it. So good for him. And he wrote a really nice piece about it as well.
And of course, there's another group of competitors at the 11 cities, Alison Renee and Alistair Swinscoe.
Yes, our duo. On a tandem board, they have travelled the whole world doing tandem racing. I think they've really elevated tandem racing. I'm sure they've inspired many others from around the world to get involved with this. They are brilliant at it. And this year they did the non-stop 11 cities race, and they got the fastest time in 27 hours, which again, the conditions were really tricky and really windy. And so, if you're on a tandem board, you've not only got yourself to worry about with the wind, you've got two units on a board, to worry about. But they are super skilled at what they do. They've been, as I say, they've been doing this for years, and they know exactly what they're doing. And they generally wear kilts because they're Scottish and they're very proud. But yes, they won the non-stop by, a couple of hours. So fantastic. Really, really brilliant for them. So big up those two people.
And someone else who's been a real fixture on the 11 cities podium over many years is Tanja Ecker from Germany. And we've both got to know her a little bit from her racing in the UK. And I think we've probably, whether formally or informally, we've adopted over here following her really courageous and winning performances at SUP 12. And Tanja left us this review of her year.
Hey, I'm Tanja Ecker from Germany, and Simon asked me to record a video about my SUP highlights of 2025. So this year I did 2 ultra races. First the SUP 12 in April, and then the Great Glen in September. So a short recap first about SUP 12. It was my second time. I went to Turkey to paddle 12 hours. And as many laps as possible. So it was good fun to see everyone again, and I just love this community there and how encouraging everyone is. That really pushes you through, and I like the idea that everybody can do as much as they can and have a good day outside. So this year I did 25 laps, so 87.5 kilometer in 12 hours and 19. So I got second overall. Yeah, it was pretty challenging because we had quite some wind and waves. So especially the first, I think, 2 or 3 hours were super tough. And people had to kneel a lot, and it was really challenging. So I was really asking myself if I can do that 12 hours, because I just brought my 22 for jump. But in the end, I got used to it, and I just love the sport, and it pushed me through, because it's really a mental challenge to keep going, because you have to do a lap, then run on the beach, pass all the people sitting there, put some food in, drink, because you're not allowed to have something on your board, and then run back on the beach and get your board back from the board muddlers, and then pedal again. So it's quite demanding, especially with those crazy conditions we had this year. But it's just great fun to be there with all the people, and Brandon set up a really nice race. Originally, I wanted to go there with my friend Ella from the Netherlands, but she injured herself, so she couldn't join. So my dad joined last minute, as I also brought some boards to the UK for 4-4. So after SUP12, I cycled a lot, and I did a hike in 6 days over the Alps with a friend. Then in September, I made a trip to Scotland. My mom joined me for the Great Glen Challenge, which was on my bucket list for 7 or 8 years. And since I dedicated more to ultra paddling last year, I thought, okay, now it's time to go there and do the 92 kilometer non-stop. And for race day, they predicted quite some wind, so we had 30 to 60 kilometer per hour wind. And we were 7 people starting in Fort William on the canal. The first part I paddled for a long time with Paul Drake. And then on the first leg we had some small waves. And then the second leg was pretty flat. And in Fort Augustus we had another portage, and then entering Loch Ness, which is a 35 kilometer stretch of lake. And there the wind really built up, and we had in the beginning like 1 meter downwind waves, which was really nice because you could really surf them until the end. And then the last 2 kilometers, it was crazy how the waves built up. At the end of the lake, it was 1.5 to 2 meter high, and I had to cross over into the canal. So that was quite heavy. But then I finished in Inverness after 11 hours and 5 minutes, first overall. So in total 5 finished. And Paul got second, but he was 40 minutes behind. It was a nice pedal. So for the Great Glen, I chose again my 4-4 jump 22 and the Hipperstick Verve pedal, which is my favorite combo for these ultra distances. And also because you have a combination of flat canals and wavy lakes, it's a really nice board for these changing conditions. And then I had my mom as my support crew, so she was at 2 places to refill my water and to have a peanut butter jam sandwich. And then I have also Moon Valley bars, which I cut into small pieces so I can eat every 30 minutes, and then drinking electrolytes. And that's also what I used at SUP12. That's what I use for all my ultra paddling. So I really like the community in the UK, the camaraderie and the support. That's also why I like to come back to the races in the UK. And I also stayed for the second day, for the 2-day version of the Great Glen. And I really liked the after party with the prize giving, with dinner all together and chat with each other. So that makes an event also really nice. Not only the paddling, the landscape, the scenery, but also the whole setup around with dinner together and people together with the same passion. So my plans for next year, so I have to see. But of course I would like to do SUP12 and Great Glen again, because both are really nice events. Although both this year got quite challenging with the conditions, but yeah, that's nature. We can't plan on that, and you have to prepare for everything, for flat water, ocean, waves. So that's also what I like about ultra racing, that it's so versatile and to push my limits mentally, physically, prepare myself for everything that can happen. But it's so much fun, and I really enjoy the landscape, the people, the community. So I can only recommend to try out some ultra paddling yourself and get into this community, because it's something different. It's a different competition. It's more a competition with yourself and a bit more friendly. So you have to beat yourself first and then set your own goals and try to reach your own goals, because it's, like I said, a challenge more with yourself than with others. Yeah, thanks Simon for inviting me for your recap, and thanks for everything you do for the sport and bring the people together like this, and your live feeds and everything you do. So have a great end of the year and a good start into the new year, and see you somewhere on the water.
Okay, so let's have a quick chat about SUP12, because this year it was the third annual edition of the race, and it's a race held in early spring in Tor Bay. It's the brainchild of Brendan Prince. It's a 12-hour ocean circuit race and was won for the second year running by Paul Simmons, with Tanya coming second. But it's a bit of an endurance event for the organisers and ourselves, as well as the competitors, isn't it?
It is just the most fantastic event, because it's as hardcore as you want it to be. If you want to get on that start line at 7 a.m. in the morning and beast your way through it for 12 hours, you can do that, like Tanya did, Paul Simmons, and running as well, running between laps, because you have a lap and then you come off, you have to run past your food station, your nice, comfy, warm, seats that you could sit on, and you have to go, no, I'm carrying on, or not. So you can be the opposite. You can go, okay, I might start at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I might paddle for an hour, and then I might sit and have coffee and chat with my friends, and then get back on the water. So it's a race for everybody. And we know that particularly because we had a couple of ladies who had never raced before who entered this year. And, that gives me a lot of joy, because I've spoken to them both afterwards, and one of them's getting a race board and the other one would have a go again. So that's, to start your racing with that race is a big deal, isn't it? And I know that one of those girls in particular was, very nervous. So it's a great concept. It's drawn a little bit of its sort of life from Last Paddler Standing, which Brendan did in the first year that was held. So it's a great, quite sort of spicy conditions, and paddling, for 12 hours. I think I can't remember how far Tanya went, probably 87.
It was 87, yeah.
So yeah, it's a really great race, and it's open for everybody. And now you've got SUP6, which is the baby version, so you can start at 1 o'clock and go through to 7 p.m. Yeah, it's brilliant.
It is, absolutely. Generally, we managed to last. I ate an entire load of strepsils, which kept me talking, and we managed to make it to the end. Generally, our equipment struggles, particularly during the last hour, and we got to speak to some other guests who came on from overseas. Kirsty McMillan and Larry Kane and Maddie we spoke to as well, amongst others. So it's great fun, and those people are listening, thank you very much for coming on, because it sort of gets us going in that 10-hour type time period in the afternoon when fatigue is starting to kick in. It's not all about us, by the way. There's paddlers out there on the ocean really putting the effort in, but no, it's great fun. And I think the other thing is that we get to spend so much time with so many of the paddlers as they come through and just offer that support. So there's a real collective thing during the course of the day, which is really special, and I think the main reason why, once people do it, they come back year after year in order to do it. There is a special sort of atmosphere, isn't there?
Definitely. I think that getting off the water and having to walk through that station and walk past us and other paddlers and all the supporters who are there, friends and family, brings a really different element to a race, because it is the mindset of, if you want to win that race, you've got to sort of ignore that. You've got to carry on through, as I say, or not. And you can stop and chat and I don't know, get a hug from someone and just get that, you've got this, you can carry on, why not carry on? And a lot of people go there with no thought of how it's going to go. They just go, I'm going to have a go at this. We had 2 guys on a tandem board who absolutely struggled. I'm not sure they'd ever paddled a tandem board before, but at the end of the event, they got it together, but they really struggled. But it was just really amazing to see. And yes, that coming off the water, that support, it is what draws people back year on year. It's a very, very special event, and I'm glad to be part of it. And hopefully this year, Simon, we'll have an upgraded studio instead of the back of my van, which worked temporarily, but we need to up our game.
Absolutely. Well, year on year, sound quality, all of that stuff will pick up the standard. So also at SUP 12 was UK's Emily King, who is previously a general racer, and she put in a huge performance at that event, but it became very clear that it wasn't her main event for the year. I will let Emily explain.
Hi, my name's Emily King, and I'm here to talk to you about the year that I've had. It's been an incredible year. I switched from being a mid-distance paddler, from doing tech racing, sprint racing, SUP surfing, to becoming an ultra-endurance paddler. And my goals for the year were to do the SUP 12, which was the first time I did that, and I came second to the lovely Tanya Ecker, who is a world-class endurance athlete. It was a fabulous race on very difficult conditions down in Devon. And I had a brand new board, 20-inch Starboard All-Star, which I literally only had for about 10 days beforehand to get used to. So it was very swelly and rolly throughout the competition. It was a lot of fun, but I definitely learned a lot on that paddle itself. I was super pleased with what I did, because I aimed to try and do 7K per hour on the laps, including the portages. So when I came out and saw the scoreboard, all my times were within that. So that made me really, really happy, because actually that was the entry race for me to do before I went and did a really big ultra endurance paddle. There's a race in the UK called the Devizes to Westminsters, which up until now, and it's been running for sort of 80 years, has been a boat kayak race, and it runs from Devizes to Westminster in England. And we do about 70k a day for 3 days, and then about 30k on the last day. And it was the first time that they said they would allow stand-up paddleboard to enter. So a friend of mine, Paddy McCormick from Ireland, and myself were the 2 SUPs that were balloted to go in as a test class. So we didn't actually get a prize giving, but we did have dibbing rights to say that we were the first people, and I was the first woman to do Devizes to Westminster officially on stand-up paddleboards. So I was so pleased with that, because that was an absolute learning curve for me in terms of training, nutrition, training crew to deal with me. It was just a whole way of thinking about a sport and the equipment and how you do it, because there's a lot of portaging as well. So new ground broken, and we didn't just manage to do the cut-off times, which they were worried we wouldn't meet, but we also managed well under the time, and in apparently the worst year of conditions they've had for a long time without calling it off. So for me, that was just like, wow, we really can do this. And again, my times and my training, I stuck to the plan, and they absolutely played out. So that was just beyond expectation. But like I say, it's a lot of teamwork that gets you through that sort of thing. You've got to rely on everybody that helps support you. Then I went on to Ireland, and I did a race the previous year. Is amazing, like 53k, non-stop down canals, called the Barrow Blitz. And I'd won it the year before, so it was a little bit of pressure to go back in and get into that Irish community, knowing that they were all going to train hard to try and take me out. But actually, they're the friendliest bunch of people on the planet until you get on the water. And again, it was difficult conditions. The year before we'd had a lot of flow, but we didn't have any flow at all. So it was just brutal paddling in quite hot conditions as well. But on my shiny new board and with all the training and the confidence, I was able to absolutely take that one again. So I came home a very, very happy girl. I then had a bit of a rest from paddling because ultra endurance is very demanding on your body. You are literally destroying a lot of your muscles. You're putting micro fractures into bones each time you do something for that many hours, even with all the training. So it's really important to have a bit of a rest. But I had booked to do the Great Glen, which was also an amazing bucket list paddle that I wanted to do. Most people will tackle it first time round by doing it in 2 halves. You can do half of it in day 1 and half in day 2. But I went, well, let's do it on the first day. So I set myself the sights of doing 13 hours on that. And again, my lovely friend Tanya was over and we took to the water. And with endurance, you're never really racing somebody else. You're just sticking to your race plan and getting through it because there's so many variables, so many things that can happen. It's not like a race where it's played out in 30 minutes or 13 hours. In very different conditions as you go through. It's races within races, really. The second half was just brutal, and Loch Ness is foreboding enough, but you can't get off of it. So once you get on for that second half of that day, you're pretty much committed unless a safety boat pulls you out. And I seem to have this knack of finding races at the moment that run with their worst conditions when I'm on them. So Loch Ness was brutal. 50% of the paddlers pulled out. Tanya and I were the only women that completed the single day. And the waves were like 2 to 3 foot with a few seconds between and reverb because it's very steep-sided. So to say that I was paddling, I think the thing to say is you survive. You have to know that you're going to make it to the end and not give up and completely and utterly just commit, unless you know you're in danger. So that's exactly what I had to do. I had to set myself against whatever was coming at me. And even though I was in a lot of pain and very, very hungry and my body was struggling at one point, actually, it was hypoglycemic and I couldn't take food on because I was just falling in. So you just set your mind over matter, really, and lots of deep breathing exercise and taking on oxygen. So it was pretty phenomenal. And I came on board to think, I never want to do that again. But by the next day, I was like, oh, I can't wait to do it again. So for me, this year's been absolutely phenomenal. It's surpassed my expectation. The support that I've had from my family, my husband who helps train me, the kit I've used from the Oscar propulsion paddle, which has really meant my shoulders haven't worn out, through to the starboard. It's just been really, really great. And you know, I know that sounds like I'm thanking my sponsors, which I am. I also had a Bacobi buoyancy vest, which was made out of neoprene, which again is just a game changer because it just fits me perfectly and has all that I need in it, but not too much because I'm absolutely tiny, and finding the right kit to do these things is a nightmare because anything that's oversized causes me a problem. So it really is a season to say thank you to everybody, because without everyone it wouldn't be possible and I wouldn't be able to do what I do. So I've just had 6 weeks off and I've started training again now over the last week. So I'll start building up for my endurance training over the next month or so. I'm going to be doing SUP again and Devizes to Westminster and see what happens for the rest of the year, going coast to coast as well. That's not a race, thankfully. That's just a challenge with someone who wants me to support them. And maybe get out to Europe next year, depending on sponsorships, finance and time. But yeah, really exciting times. And I just love the SUP community. I've been part of the SUP community now for 16 years and I can't see myself going away. So yeah, what a year. Who knows what next year will be, but I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what it brings.
So Emily had quite an incredible backstory, and SUP's been a real boon to her in her recovery from a traumatic incident in her life. And Emily's story is in a book which we both contributed to, Adventures on the Water, edited by Joe Mosley, which is available in all good booksellers. And we talked about in the previous episode, the 2025 book club episode.
Hello, I'm Jamie Bartlett-Bundy. I'm one of the duo that paddleboarded across the English Channel in October. I've been asked to put together a small video about our achievements this year. This year has been highs and lows, very big highs, very painful lows. The lows being having to publicly talk about my feelings and about my daughter Pearl, who we lost in 2017 to Ewing sarcoma, which is a very aggressive form of bone cancer. I've been working my way up to trying to raise money for the charity CCLG for a while, but emotionally that was too much. But 2023, my brother and I, after paddleboarding for a few years, decided we want to take on some bigger challenges. And what turned into being a challenge for us turned into a small fundraiser for CCLG, and we both thoroughly enjoyed it. That following Christmas, I think it was Christmas Eve, I just turned around and went, let's paddleboard across the English Channel. Not knowing where that was going to lead us and not knowing how far that was going to go. And it's been amazing. We raised 15,000 in total in the end, just under 60 quid under, I believe. I just started making videos, started posting up our training, what we were up to, and it just snowballed from there. We did lots of events. We did a starling paddle under Brighton Pier to watch the starlings, which was just amazing. And I've just so blown away by how much support we've got from the community. The amount of people that have just been sending beautiful messages, that sponsored us, that gave us money, that just wanted to get behind us doing this. The highs of the year, raising the money. It's clearly the biggest high for me. As far as paddleboarding goes, it's my place of safety. It's my place to reflect. It's something that I do to come to terms with the world. And I've managed to somehow turn that into something good outside of the good that it does me. And some of that has come from the support from everybody else. My brother and I have bonded over this. It's been really quite a remarkable experience. The paddle crossing itself was absolutely backbreaking. But I wouldn't change it for the world, and I'd do it again tomorrow. Being out at sea on a paddleboard just seems mental. Going in a straight line and not being able to see much of land either side is unbelievably grounding. I love that. I absolutely just sort of turning around one way or another and seeing big tankers coming for you. That can shit you up a little bit. Anyway, but that's my highlights from this year. And from me and my brother John, it's been a real pleasure to be supported and to keep going. There's something coming in the future. Not going to say what it is yet, but it's going to be bigger, better and bolder. And I think we'll be the only people that have done it. If we get to do it. Thank you so much. Hope this video is useful. Bye-bye.
One of the other events this year was the Crossing, which is an annual race from Bimini in the Bahamas, 80 miles across to Florida. It sets off overnight and it raises money for the treatment and support of people with cystic fibrosis, which is a really unpleasant condition to live with. And I think one of my most impressive interviewees out of the many episodes that I've recorded on this show is with Riley Walker, who is the most incredibly courageous woman. She has cystic fibrosis and she took part in this year's Crossing and had trained incredibly hard for it. The conditions are so extreme in terms of heat and ocean conditions is why it sets out at midnight. And she unfortunately was unable to complete it. But speaking to her and learning about the Crossing was incredibly impressive. So we obviously wish Riley all the best for her continued health, and also to Travis Soot, the organiser, whose daughter Piper inspired the Piper's Angels Foundation, who are behind the Crossing for Cystic Fibrosis. And we wish everyone the best for the race in 2026, which is open for registration at crossingforcysticfibrosis.com, link in the show notes. Right, so also within that ultra category, and you mentioned it earlier, is Last Paddler Standing. It's one of those headline events which round off the year. And following your co-commentary triumph at the ICF World Championships in Sarasota last year, you've been invited back to Florida this year to commentate. And Last Paddler Standing is always a race which brings the drama, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I cannot tell you how excited I am. I go off in a couple of weeks' time. I've been wanting to get involved on the media side of this event since its first day of running. I've watched it obsessively. I'm obsessed with it. I think it's such a great format. It's the slowest, most exciting race in the world. And I'm to be part of the media team. Really honoured. So to Greg Wingo, the race director, thank you so much for having me. But what a race. I mean, it's sort of designed around the backyard ultra running races, which Greg has had a lot of experience in. And you go off at a certain time on the hour, you paddle for a certain distance, you get off the water, you wait for that next hour, and off you go again. And history has it that it's been running for 48 hours, 50 hours. And I cannot wait for this year to see who does what, how they get there, how they manage. We've got Bruce going again this year for the UK, so I'm so excited for him. He's not raced a lot this year, but you know he's going. He's back there again with Karen, so she will be his support. She might be racing as well. I know she has raced in it before, but knowing that she can then get off the water and help Bruce and be his support team. So really looking forward to it. What a great race concept it is.
We've talked at length in the past about Last Paddler Standing, but it is literally the Last Paddler Standing when you follow that sort of format, one circuit every hour. And an individual can only win it if they complete a final lap on their own. And if they don't complete that final lap on their own, then the race wins. And for the first time last year, the race won, which was the most exciting non-finish, I guess, in history. And so it's a hugely exciting race. And following a glitch in the Matrix and through the power of time travel, let's cut to future Sarah giving us a summary of this year's Last Paddler Standing.
Hi, this is Sarah, SUP Junkie, reporting from Lake Placid, Florida on the Last Paddler Standing. So here's a recount of the last couple of days. 24 hours before the end of the race, we had 9 paddlers left, and throughout that day, 2 of those didn't make the cut, so we were on to the group of 7 paddlers, the Super 7, and they were Bruce Smith, Lindsay Tilton, Mike Carson, John Batson, Laird Wharton, Jeremy Stanton and Brad Friesen. Going into Sunday night, we knew that there was a threat of lightning, and that did in fact happen. So we had 2 hours of the paddlers off the water, so no paddling, which meant that the 48 laps that should be completed as a shorter course would now become 46. So when they started off again, we had 7 paddlers left still, and leading up to that first super lap, which is where the course lengthens to 4.9 miles, and it was a beautiful day, quite still, not too much wind, and those paddlers who made the cut were Brad Friesen, Bruce Smith and John Batson. Lindsay Tilton also made the cut, and she did an incredible thing. She's the first woman to complete a super lap at Last Paddler Standing, which is an incredible feat. So big it up for Lindsay Tilton. So we go into the second super lap. We've still got 3 riders and they're all going for it. So again, we've got Brad, we've got Bruce, we've got John. And again, they all get through. The paddling was absolutely incredible from these 3 gentlemen. So into a third super lap, something that's never happened before. And we had Bruce, we had Brad, we had John, again, battling it out. Sadly for Bruce, he knew that he wasn't going to make it. He started to get a pain in his shoulder, I believe, and decided that he would quit there and then. So he paddled back to the shore to a rapturous welcome from everybody. Everybody has so much respect for our UK paddler, Bruce. Brad and John completed that super lap, but it was there that Brad decided to assist John and give it up and let John take that fourth super lap on his own. And anybody who knows last paddler standing knows that whatever happens in the race, there always has to be the last paddler who has to paddle on his own and complete that lap within the time. So you can imagine that everybody was willing John Batson on, and he absolutely smashed that last lap on his own, completed lap 50, the fourth super lap, and became last paddler standing 2025. What a race, what an experience. And please do check out the recordings of the live feed on lastpaddlerstanding.com. It was fabulous. Congratulations, John Batson.
And Sarah miraculously joins us back from the future, and that gives us an opportunity to talk about adventure. And I felt that the public and me particularly needed to hear what John McFadden's been up to this year. Now, John's social media tag is SUP the World, and a while ago now he set himself the target of paddleboarding in every country, which for the record he's listed as 192, and so far he's paddled in 54 of them. And I spoke to him a couple of times on the show in episodes 60 and 41. And he's a hugely entertaining speaker. And this year he's on an additional side project. So here is John.
Hello Simon and SUPfm listeners. It's John McFadden here from SUP the World. My top memory of 2025? Well, as I sit here at home in the northwest of England on a cold, dreary November evening, the 30-degree sunshine of Hungary and Serbia back in June seems like such a long, long time. One of my lifetime goals is to stand up paddle the entire length of Europe's second longest river, the Danube, a journey of almost 3,000 kilometres. As far as I know, only two paddlers, Andy Bartlett and Tim Cruz, have completed this journey by SUPboard. In 2021, I travelled the 360-kilometre Passau to Bratislava section, and the following year I ticked off another 230 kilometres from Bratislava to Budapest with my friend Ludek Kukurek. In June 2025 I was back on the river. This year's quest should have taken me almost 500 kilometres from Budapest to Belgrade, but unfortunately events did not quite turn out as intended. My trip got off to a fantastic start with a kind invitation from David of SUP Budapest to join his sunset tour through the centre of the Hungarian capital. Sailing past the instantly recognisable Parliament building as the orange and red sinking sun cast its spell was truly memorable. If you ever get the chance to paddle past this spectacular backdrop, I highly recommend it. My adventure proper began the following morning, and straight into 3 days of brutal headwinds. I was worn out and aching at the end of each day, and to be honest with you, I was desperate for any excuse to quit. But gradually the wind eased off. I became used to the powerful sun beating down upon me, and I began to appreciate the beautiful countryside all around. Seeing a fox prowling the shoreline one morning and an otter swimming across the river at sunset were particular highlights. But by the time I reached the Serbian border, I knew that I had a problem. A minor ankle injury had become an open wound. I had to seek medical attention, but that night I was camping under a tree in the middle of nowhere. The following day, I arrived in the Serbian town of Apatin and took refuge in a hotel room at the local marina. My friend Dejan put me in touch with Cecilia, a doctor he knew. He took one look at the photographs of my ankle and ordered me straight to the local health centre. I cannot fault the attention I got there. Cleaned, dressed, antibiotics, and a prescription for a few days off the water to rest. I was quite happy to take some time out and spend a couple of days exploring the small town of Apatin whilst recharging my batteries. But there was one problem. I needed to be in the city of Novi Sad in a few days' time to meet my daughter Kerry and to take part in the wonderful Novi Sad SUP regatta. I had no choice but to skip a section of the Danube and take the bus to Novi Sad. Now, I don't like to miss the opportunity to make a really bad joke, so I will just say I wasn't too sad to get the bus to Novi Sad, but I was disappointed to miss a section of the Danube. It was worth it though, the opportunity to join the regatta, 60 or so stand-up paddleboarders on an epic, thrilling 2-day trip along the Danube to Belgrade, all expertly organised by Dejan and Dragan. As day 2 came to a close and our group of paddlers approached the finishing line in the Serbian capital, I could hear loud dance music pounding from a trendy riverside venue, and I saw Dejan standing on the bank with a microphone. Of course, I don't speak Serbian, so I had no idea what he was saying, but then I heard my name mentioned, and a crowd of young, fashionable partygoers began to chant, "Go, Johnny, go, go, go. Go, Johnny, go, go, go." Well, I couldn't resist raising my paddle in triumph. And that was that. I didn't quite succeed in my goal to SUP the entire distance from Budapest to Belgrade, but I will surely return in 2026 to fill in the gap.
So great to hear from John again. And this was also seemingly a year for German endurance paddlers. And we've already heard from Tanja Ecker, but there was another paddler, Michael Walther, who set out to cross the Atlantic on a paddleboard, which is something that had only been done previously once before, which was by Chris Burtish, who's a South African big wave surfer who crossed the Atlantic in 2017. And I did interview him back in episode 77. Now, Michael was about 1,000 kilometres out into the Atlantic, making good time. He had just made it through Hurricane Gabrielle, or the back end of Hurricane Gabrielle and associated storm, when his craft was hit by something solid and it caused some huge catastrophic damage to his craft, and as a result he had to end his attempt, which I know was hugely disappointing for him, but really lucky in a way because he survived it and managed to get back to dry land. So we obviously wish him all the best, and we hope to hear him on the show at some point, either before or after his next attempt. Okay, so before we look ahead to 2026, I just wanted to say that it's a tough time for businesses in this sport, and this year saw the final print copy of a couple of publications which we've both appeared in, but you've been an ever-present in for many years, and I'm sure you wanted to say a little about SUPmag UK and The Paddler.
Well, as you know, and you and I have both written for them for a little while, and it's sort of where I first started my writing career, if you can call it that. I've got all my magazines sat right in front of me here. And Tez, Peter and Anne have been so supportive of me. They've basically let me write about whatever. You know, they've trusted me to bring some good stories. You know, it's where I met Jordan Wiley, it's where I met Brendan Prince, it's where I've met some really very, very cool people that I've written about and then become friends with. Yes, I almost cried when I was told by Peter and Anne. It's very upsetting because it's not the first paper magazine that has stopped producing this year. We lost other magazines as well, and it's an indication of how very, very difficult it is, you know, as regards advertising, as regards support for these magazines. It will still continue online, and let's hope it continues for a very long time. But it's the end of an era. It's incredibly sad, and I know that Peter and Anne especially have done everything in their power to not let this happen. But it has, and a really sad day for our industry. As I say, I've got all my back copies, most of them, and I shall enjoy looking at them and having them there to look through. I love a paper copy of anything, a book. You know, I'm not. I spend too much time looking at my screen anyway. I don't want to read on screen. So, I found it really a very sad day, and we wish Peter and Anne and Tez, you know, the very best of luck. And it's been a joyful ride to be part of such a great magazine and sister publication. Yeah.
Absolutely, and just to echo what you said, I've been a subscriber since the very early days. Tez was one of the earliest guests on the pod, and I've also got all of my copies over here in the bookcase. So yeah, a really, really sad day. But you know that there are a lot of businesses as we go through tough economic times that are really feeling the stress. So if you are out there, please support your local SUP business, particularly the shops there. Go in, buy it from them, because they have that expertise, and it's well worth having a chat with someone who knows what they're talking about rather than just buying it off the internet. Right, okay. So that's 2025 put to bed, and 2026 will be another great year for SUP. So I just wanted to pick up a couple of key points for people's references, and the first one is about SUP's attempt to be added to the Olympics. Now, in 2032 in Brisbane, Australia, that's the next Summer Olympics after Los Angeles, which is coming up. And because of the fight for the soul of SUP over many years, there was a legal decision made that the ISA, so the International Surfing Association, were the body responsible for managing SUP's Olympic entry. And 2026 is a critical year for that, because that's the year where new sports are submitted to the IOC for inclusion. So we really hope that the ISA is going to put absolutely everything into the case of including SUP into the 2032 Olympics. We haven't heard that much about their approach. I hope they've got something absolutely killer up their sleeves. I have tried to find out, and we will do some more on them and the Olympic bid in a future episode. But we're all really crossing our fingers, aren't we, that SUP finally gets the inclusion it deserves.
Absolutely, and we implore you, ISA, please pull your finger out and get on with it. I'm sure we hope that there's stuff happening in the background. This is a pivotal year, and if you've got nothing else to show the IOC, you've got that footage of that technical racing, which is so, for want of a better word, sexy to watch. You know, if you show them anything, that is what we need in the Olympics, that kind of event. We don't need the distance. You know, it's quite dull to watch on a coverage level, but the technical or the sprints, you know, I think that's where it's at. So yes, please, ISA, collectively get together and get this bid in. It's really, really important to the future of stand-up paddleboard racing, for sure.
There we go. So a message to the ISA, you fought for it. There's an opportunity here, and we trust that you will continue pushing the sport in the Olympics, which is the biggest shop window for the sport and probably the biggest event that will push the profile of SUP racing. So also in 2026 is another very exciting event that we're both involved in. And for us in the community in the UK, we've got a lot of great races, classic races and great events going on. But the major event next year, certainly for us in the UK, is happening in Torbay, which is a real destination now for SUP events. Next year is particularly special because it's the 5-day Super Festival incorporating the ICF World Cup in June, and registration has opened, and it is quite something for us in this hotbed of SUP to have a ICF World Cup event. Now, Torbay is the ideal place. The British like their sport, and it's going to be a really high-profile event, creating quite some excitement in a location perfect for competition. So I think we're both really excited about what's coming up in June.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to be counting the days, let alone the weeks and the months, Simon, aren't we? It's really exciting and great that we've got this event, and that is all thanks to the vision of Brendan Prince and then the support totally of Paddle UK, because it has to come from the national governing body. And they are both absolutely behind this event and its success, and holding it within a the Super Festival is for everybody, and the ICF SUP World Cup is for those more elite paddlers. And you can enter. Don't let that word elite put you off. It is for everybody as well. So if you want to go for it and enter those ICF races and be paddling next to the international paddlers, do it. Put yourself up against them. How exciting to stand next to your hero, perhaps. So we implore everybody in the UK to enter this event. We want it to be the biggest showcase. It is, it's the biggest event that the UK has ever held, SUP racing wise. We are really excited. We're hoping to bring you some great coverage. And what a great location. It's shown that it works because it's got multiple areas, multiple beaches. So it should be absolutely great. And I know that you and I are chomping at the bit to get down there, aren't we, Simon?
We absolutely are. I mentioned Brendan Prince, who people will know, incredible individual who paddled around Great Britain a few years ago, has been the brains behind the initiative and has been working incredibly hard to bring in the sponsorship and local participation from local councils and organisations to put a really great event together. And as Sarah said, there's plenty of activities going on over the 5 days, including the hugely popular SUP Polo, which again was an event that really got the locals going this year. It was unbelievably popular. And obviously talking about governance is not always the most exciting thing to talk about, but when governance is done right, it can make a huge difference to the sport. And since Paddle UK took responsibility in the UK for SUP, they have really made a huge difference from, I think, the immediate point where they first assumed that lead role. And they do loads of things as part of their role. They're obviously key stakeholders in getting the ICF World Cup here, but they've also made strides in lots of other areas as well, particularly safety. So before we sum up, I thought we'd give Rob from Paddle UK the opportunity to talk a bit about their 2025 and with a look ahead to 2026.
Hi everyone, I'm Robert Knott from Paddle UK. We are the national governing body that includes everything from canoeing and kayaking to, of course, stand-up paddleboarding. We aim to help, support and educate everyone from beginners to experienced paddlers to enjoy being on the water safely, responsibly and confidently. 2025 has seen great strides for stand-up paddleboarding. Naturally, for us, the highlight was in March when we were awarded the Stand-Up Paddleboarding World Cup event for June 2026 by the International Canoe Federation. It is the first time that an ICF SUP event of this scale will be held in the UK, and the first time since Paddle UK was announced as a governing body for the sport back in February 2023. Working with Brendan Prince, Torbay Council and the English Riviera business community, we have an amazing opportunity to showcase the passion and talent within UK paddling on a global stage. The 5-day event is expected to attract the world's best athletes, as well as up to 1,000 other paddlers who will take part in a festival of paddling that will showcase the breadth of SUP from recreational paddlers to elite competition. That first early bird entry window is open until the end of December, with members of Paddle UK all receiving a 25% discount on prices. So do check out the Super Festival 2026 website and sign up for our newsletter to make the most of this opportunity. On the performance and event side, we supported the GB SUP Race Series through 2025, supporting both elite and grassroots paddlers to test themselves, meet others and compete across a range of venues across the country. We were also proud for our contribution for other notable events in the domestic calendar, including the Super Champs, Race to the Castle and Sub 12. Away and in other areas, we are also continuing to develop our environmental work through the Big Paddle Cleanup. This year's event was all about getting out on the water and taking something away, collecting litter from rivers, canals and coastlines. Over 3,700 volunteers took part and together collected 1,888 sacks of waste, which is an incredible effort. So much so that we've been nominated for a British Association Sustainability in Sport Award, of which we'll find out the results in November. It is an event that brings together paddlers of every kind and shows what a positive impact our sport can have when we act collectively. We are also lobbying the government to improve access and water quality for paddlers, something we know is important to everybody who goes out on the water. This will be through a white paper on water reform, so please do support our actions in this key area and check out our website. To keep in touch, do follow us on social media and check us out on the Paddle UK website. Thank you for your time and your support in 2025, and we look forward to seeing you out on the water next year.
And a huge thank you to Rob and Paddle UK. Okay, so that's our take on 2025. It's always a challenge to do something like this because we've left a lot out. There are so many people making so much of a difference through, just even getting people onto the water, and that in itself we know helps people psychologically, physically, and it also helps people to value water and take care of the environment. So there's a lot of work going on all over the world. We'd like to say a thank you to you and well done for everything you do to support SUP and the water environment, and also for listening to this podcast, because that helps us to keep the show on the road. And Sarah, I'm sure you know this already, but 2026 is also a very special anniversary, because we first spoke on the podcast in August 2021, which means that 2026 is our 5-year collaboration anniversary, which for me at least has been an absolute pleasure. So thank you, and I'm looking forward to reaching that milestone in August 2026, because we still haven't got there yet.
Okay, well, let's hope we get there. I can't believe that, Simon. That's an incredible stat from you. How lovely. It was lovely to join you on the podcast that day. So, yeah, I look forward to August next year.
Excellent. Well, we'll have to have a cake or something. Okay, well, thanks to everyone who contributed to this show. I hope that your 2026 is even better than your 2025 was, and we hope to see you at the ICF World Cup in June in the beautiful waters of Tor Bay, and that I see you on the water before that. Sarah, any final words as we finish 2025?
Yeah, I want to say what a great year it's been, and absolutely lovely to be invited back to be on this podcast with you, Simon, and thank you for working with me and just bringing some collaboration together. It's been fantastic. Yeah, I want to say thank you to all the race directors out there. Absolutely sterling job. It's not the easiest job in the world, but yeah, fair play to you for getting out there, organising racing, and bringing a lot of fun to all those paddlers. And again, to all the paddlers who are racing, keep doing it, keep entering those events, and keep supporting those events, because again, it's not easy. So we love watching you on the water, and we can't wait to see you all in 2026. Thanks again, Simon.
So that's a mic drop from SUP Junkie, and it's a wrap for this year.